morning to you, Johnson Johnrose. How are you doing this morning?
Hello, I'm doing all right. It's lovely to be able to speaking with you, Krisnan. I mean, I know we did this workshop not terribly long ago on managing stress in the workplace. And if I let me just summarize it in one word, brilliant. Or if I want one other word, excellent. So I think I will leave it at that and let you probe a bit more.
Okay. So when the invitation was given, just share a little bit about the context of why you wanted to do the session on stress, managing stress in the workplace, and what led you to reach out to me.
Well, part of what I do here with the government of Statia or St. Eustatius, as you said, and more widely known as Statia, is training in a number of areas. And I thought we needed training in leadership. So I organized a series of sessions help on different issues and topics that and helping them maneuver and how to deal with certain key issues. One of those was how to set goals, for example, and achieve those goals, how to be a transformational leader, and how to create and generate a positive workplace culture. So issues like this we've been dealing with. And in one of the sessions, it occurred to me that, you know what, I think we need to do something on how to manage stress in the workplace. And that was what led me to you, because I've been following you a bit on social media, especially your YouTube channel. I've been seeing the work that you've done, and I felt that couldn't be a better person. I couldn't imagine a better person to contact than you to do this. One of the things I've tried to do, frankly, in organizing this session is to turn to resources who are either in the Caribbean or Caribbean nationals who are in the Caribbean or outside of the Caribbean. It doesn't matter. For example, the first session that I did on workplace, on setting goals, it's a friend of mine who is from the Caribbean, lives in the UK. But I've tried to find Caribbean resources because honestly, I found that in too many of these instances when we're doing things, we've got the resources and the expertise within the region ourselves, but we look outside. And I wanted to help to make sure that we highlight the people from the Caribbean. The gentleman who did the one on the positive workplace culture, again, I know him, he's Dominican, but he lives in Florida. He agreed to do that. I had a session last week with who dealt with dealing with emotional resilience and so on, and mental health. She's from Trinidad, lives in Trinidad. So I've been looking for resources within the Caribbean because we've got those resources, you see, and we don't have to look outside for those. So I was really very happy to reach out to you and say, can you do this for me? Because I've seen your work. You do, as I said, excellent work. I mean, it's not good work, it's excellent work. And we've got to be able to highlight people from the Caribbean who do excellent work, and hence that's why I reached out to you.
Excellent, excellent. So we started the workshop, we got going, and of course these are workers workers with the government, and we started actually very early on with questions and comments. So there was feedback and interaction, and some of your colleagues, they were able to ask questions that were pertaining to the situation that they were going through. One of the things that I try to always do in my presentations, although I have a background in psychology, is to be very practical. And so the presentation was practical, intended to be practical, but then we were able to answer specific questions. What are your thoughts on the I guess on the practicality of the session?
Permit me, if you would, before I deal with the session itself, to talk a little bit about the interaction between you and me when I reached out to you, how smoothly that went, your response, how professional it was, the questions that you raised leading up to the discussions that we had subsequent to that, and how we got into it. And so I also needed to recognize that it was not just an email that said, can you do this? But is your response, the way you deal with people, it was highly professional. And again, things like this must be highlighted, that it's not just that you have the resources, but you have people who also know how to deal with people and communicate with people, and how to get things done. So I appreciated that as well.
Thank you.
As a presenter myself, yeah, as a presenter myself, I love the interaction. That's one of the things I like to do when I present. And it's even more important when you are presenting virtually, because you've got people looking at a computer screen, and you've got to keep their interest. And so the practical nature of the session in terms of the interaction, because it took two aspects. There are two aspects of the practical nature of it. One was the interaction, where people were involved and asking questions and probing and raising issues that relate directly to them. But critically, and I don't know if it's more importantly, but at the minimum, equally importantly, was that other element, what you can actually do, the things you can do. So I'm not just imparting knowledge, I'm imparting stuff that you can actually do to improve the issue. Because remember, the subject was how to manage stress in the workplace environment. See, we were sitting listening to a lecture. We were getting ideas of the things that we can do, and one of the things that stayed with me was when you said, simple things. You were sitting and you put your hands at the back of your head and push it as much as you can and stuff like this, and get it. People loved that. They were doing it right there. You were saying, demonstrating, and people were following up, and let me do that. The whole issue of ergonomics and how we can fix that. So the system that you're using to impart knowledge, but not just impart knowledge, but to help people improve themselves to be better, as it works. It's a fantastic system. And at the end of it, the staff were asking me, when is he coming back? So clearly you did something right.
Right. What kind of takeaways did the staff leave with? So what kind of ideas were they sharing? What kind of conversations were happening? What takeaways did they leave with after the session?
I unfortunately didn't get to have a lot of conversation with them because I was abroad, as you know, when this was happening. But from the minimal interaction that I had, the key takeaways, and in fact, one of the people who was part of this workshop was the government commissioner, well, the island commissioner. That's the equivalent of a minister who was there and part of the session. And with the ergonomics thing, then do sort of, let me check to see, make sure that we're going to do an audit of the furniture and equipment that we've got. So we had a conversation after that, she and I, and she said, we know you can request something from our HR if you're not comfortable. But I said, first of all, hardly anybody within the public service knows that. But secondly, why should you wait for someone to request something of HR? Why don't you do an audit, see what we've got? And she said, yeah, we're going to have to work on that. We'll budget for it. So hopefully coming out of that, if that's the one thing. So the chairs on which people sit, the computers and the desks and so on. So if we can do an audit on that, as she said, we're going to look into and change that, just make people a little bit more comfortable when they work. If that's the only thing that comes out of it, fantastic. But there were other takeaways from the one or two other people with whom I spoke. I said the exercise stuff that we talk about, getting up from the desk and, from your desk and just walking about every so often just to ease the stress. This was some of the takeaways, the feedback that I got from some of the people who rang me and were asking and saying, yeah, fantastic session. It was too short. I got that too. It was too short. But so there were some really great takeaways from it.
Okay, excellent. Well, it was a pleasure from my end, working with your people, with your staff, with your government, and it is always a pleasure to interact with persons who are not in the mental health or healthcare scene, because oftentimes it can be very theoretical and philosophical. But to offer them recommendations, some people were talking about, for example, what happens when there are conflicts within the workspace. What happens if you're spending time late on evenings after work, spending days, multiple evenings late at work. Do those things contribute to stress? What happens with communication between supervisors or hierarchy and staff? So these are all things that were discussed, and it was really, really a pleasure to be able to offer these practical solutions to answer their specific questions about their situations which happen in their context. So that was a real pleasure. And I want to thank you, Johnson, for giving me the opportunity to share with your team. And feel free to call on me in the future. It is always a pleasure, and I look forward to serving you in whatever way you can. So thank you.
I do appreciate it. Once again, I appreciated the fact that you agreed to do this and to share your knowledge and expertise and experience with the team. It's a small team that we have here. The public service in Statia is 170, 180 people. So it's not an awful lot of people, and that's everybody. The team here at JS is 6 of us. And we had others from other departments that joined in as well. And that was the beautiful thing, that various people from departments came in and were able to help make it a much better experience for everyone, because the experiences are different. The way we operate here at the government information, for example, is different from how they operate at the census department or at various departments. So it was good. So I was really thankful that you were able to share. And secondly, I would comfortably, in my sleep, anytime, recommend you for this thing at any time, because you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing, and you do it well. So thank you very much for that.
All right. Well, it's a pleasure. I'm gonna let you get back to your duties, to your day's activities. You're back with a lot on your plate from your short trip. So thanks for taking the time, and a pleasure meeting you and getting to know you a little better.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right. Have a wonderful day.
Cheers.